Welcome to the first video in my series on using the Oracle Data Miner 11g R2 tool. Okay, this tool was released in March 2011 and now comes as part of SQL Developer 3. This first video is to show you how to get started with the 11g R2 data mining tool and how to set up some of the tabs and some of the features like the repository and some of the data mining users, and being able to get access to some of the sample data that is available. But before you start, you're going to need to download the tool. So like I've already said, it comes now with as an add-on to SQL Developer 3. So I have a couple of links here that may be useful, and the first one will bring you to some kind of general information about SQL Developer 3, and the second one will bring you to the download page for it. So these are kind of your first place to go and visit. The second set of links that I have here brings you to Oracle by Example, and the team that looks after Oracle Data Miner and Charlie Berger, who's the director of the product, I've put together a series of demonstrations on how to use the tool, and particularly in various different scenarios. And the link that I have here brings you to kind of a similar type video that what I have is about how to get up and running with the tool and how to configure certain things. But what my video here gives is kind of my particular flavor on how to go about using it, because I think there's a few extra things that people need to be aware of in order to get going with the tool. So the first place to start before you get going is that you need to download and unzip SQL Developer 3. And when you open it up, is where do you find the data mining options? Okay, so there's a couple of places to go looking on the menu system. The first place is under the View menu. Okay, and if we scroll down a bit, we then find the data mining options. So we have like data mining connections, workflow jobs, property inspector. Okay, and under the tools, which is where we're going to start first, is that we're going to find things like that we can make some of the tabs available, and also where we can go about to create the data mining repository, which is what you need to create within the database before you get going or can start doing some data mining. Okay, so are we ready to get started with Oracle Data Miner? Yeah. Okay, so let's go and have a look about at getting at the data mining options and some of the features like on the menu options here, and then we'll come back and have a look at what we need to do next. To open SQL Developer, we click on the icon that we created during the install. When SQL Developer opens, we can then click on Tools, Data Miner, Make Visible. This opens two tabs, which is the Data Mining tab and the Workflows tab. The connections that we have under our Connections tab will also be replicated down in the Data Miner Connections tab. To look at the other features that we have, we can also look at under the View menu. We can open up Property Inspector, which will give us some features. Before we can start doing any data mining, there's a couple of things that we need to do first. Okay, the first of these tasks that we need to do is that we need to create our schema that we're going to use for our data mining work. Okay, so in order to do this, we need to be using our system or sys connection to our database. Okay, and to do this, what we need to do is open that connection, right click on the user other users' nodes and to create a user for it. Okay, and we can create our data mining schema, and we can go along and create our connection. So to allow us to do this, or to see how we can do this, is we're going to do a demo of how this can be done. To create our data mining user, we go up to sys on our connections, we expand that, we scroll down to the end of the list of properties, features, and we have other users. We can right click on that and select create user. Here we can start entering in some of the details. So their username, we call it DM user, password, we'll leave all of those blank. Table space, we'll say users, temporary table space, temporary. And then we need to give them some roles and privileges. So the usual ones of connect and resource. Okay, that's all we need to do. So we can go and create our user. We'll come back at a later stage and create another user which will be used for other videos and other exercises that we have in the series. The second and next thing that we need to set up is our repository, which is going to store all our data mining models that we're going to create and various different things like that. So we need to create a data mining repository within our database, and the easiest way to do that is to use the SQL Developer tool and the functionality within that to create the repository. Now, to create a repository, we need to know the sys password, because we need to establish a connection as sys and run a series of scripts, which is what the tool does, in order to create a repository for us. Okay. If you don't want to use the functionality within SQL Developer tool, you can use a series of SQL scripts, and these scripts come as part of the install of SQL Developer. If you go looking for the data mining directories under SQL Developer, you will find these scripts. So just install the data mining repository, grant some user privileges, and then set up the different demo data that we need to be able to access. So let's go and have a look at how this is done using the functionality built into the Oracle Data Miner tool. I've created a connection for our data mining user, and when that happens, we'll get an entry in the connections tab, and we also get a connection down in the data mining tab. To create the repository for the first user and for the first time, the easiest way is to let the SQL Developer tool with the Oracle Data Mining functionality to create the repository for you. The easiest way to do this is if you double click on the user, you'll try to connect, you'll realize that the repository doesn't exist within the database, and it'll prompt you, do you want to create it? If you click on yes, it'll prompt you for the sys user name and password. So enter the password, click OK. It'll ask you for some table spaces. You can alter those if you want, or you can click on OK and then start. So this is where some people get a bit stuck. You have to click on the start button. I've also highlighted to install the demo data. This will take approximately 2 minutes on my laptop, or if it's going across a network onto a server type install, it could take 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, so the repository install has finished. Now what we need to do is we need to allow it to set up and recognize that our user that we've created earlier is going to be used for data mining. So we need to put in the password for it. Okay, and in the next bit what we're going to do is we're going to create another Oracle data mining schema. Okay, so sometimes having one schema isn't enough in order to our data mining, okay, because we may have different projects, different application areas, so we want to separate out the work that we're going to do. But in this case we already have a repository, so using the functionality within SQL Developer 3 is not suitable at this point. So what we need to do is we need to go and use some of the scripts in order to create the user, to create the relevant grants, give them privileges to use the repository, and to set up the demonstration data. So we have a couple of scripts here which are similar to the ones we've seen on the previous part of the video. Okay, and they can be found under the SQL Developer directory under the data mining one. So in this case we're going to go in and create another, our second schema for data mining, which we will use in future videos demonstrations. So we need to create a new user for our data mining. So we'll have two users available for data mining. So we click under our sys, go to create user, and we create the username. Select the table spaces to work in, and we grant the roles. Apply that. The user's created, so now we can create a connection. Test the connection. The connection works, so we can save it. So this new connection now appears in our connection list and also in our data mining user list. So in order to be able to use it for data mining, we need to be able to grant it the appropriate privileges and grant it access to the repository. So to do this using the scripts, what we need to do is we need to log in as sys, dba, run the user grants.sql, and then we have to pass in our new username. So make sure it is in uppercase, otherwise it won't work. And all of these scripts are located under the SQL Developer Data Miner scripts directory. All done. So the next thing we need to run is our set up the demo data. And we're all done. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video of getting started with Oracle Data Miner 11g or 2. We have shown how you can set up a data mining user, how you can set up the repository, how you can set up the sample data.